What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ and Buck with you. Buck, what is up, man?
Not too much, DJ. Like crazy weekend for you. I took care of all my broadcasting duties early in the week. East West Shrine Bowl, knocked that out. You were the man on stage on Saturday. Shrine Bowl was great. You, CD, Rhett did a really good job of passing on that stuff. And it seemed like you guys had a lot of fun watching some of the premier talent doing their thing down in Mobile.
What was it like to call a game indoors, by the way? Curious, as somebody who was in 35 mile per hour winds when it was 20 degrees out. Curious, was that nice, Buck? To keep nice and warm?
It was nice inside, but I would say that it was miserable on the outside because, DJ, I think I had every meal in the hotel, which is atypical, but everything in Dallas was snowed in. The hotels had their employees stay in the hotel so they could keep the restaurants open, but it was not. It was a little different hustle. But it was fun. You know, All-Star games are fun for a few different reasons. One, you get the chance to see talent. But for us at these days, this is the only time where you really get a chance to catch up with some of your old people before you see them at the combine. And now the way the combine is going, where people aren't sending all of the scouts, like sometimes this is the only time that you catch up with your buddies and your colleagues to have those meaningful conversations on the road.
Yeah, it is kind of like those mini conventions at these all-star games in the combine, but they aren't as attended as they once were. I don't know that's necessarily a bad thing. You get the tape, you can watch it at home. They're doing these interviews with the players. A lot of them are being recorded or they're on Zooms so they can, talk to them. I really think, and we'll get into some of the players we like from these games here in a minute, but I do think what came out of COVID, Buck, from the ability to visit with players as often as you can now via Zoom is one of the great game changers in the scouting calendar and the scouting process. That access directly to players, to see them, to show them video, to get their take on things as you're watching plays together. Like that is incredible tool.
Yeah, it's an incredible tool. And it's one of the things that people should take advantage of because we talked about it, DJ, before when we were talking to prospects. It was whatever encounter that you had on the road during a school visit, the time that you had at the train station, which was the informal, the 15-minute formal, if they made the top 30 visit, and then whatever took place on the pro day visit, that was your only touch point. So you're talking about making $1 million decisions on less than 24 hours of interaction, which is very difficult. The Zooms and the virtual stuff actually allows you to build a relationship so you're more comfortable with the people that you're adding to your team and bringing into your building, which is a win-win for the player and also for the team.
Yeah, to me, it's anytime you can be around them, talk to them, and talk ball with them, it is incredibly valuable, to say the least. All right, Buck, it's time for Hot or Not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. And for Hot or Not this week, let's talk about some of these players that helped themselves, had good weeks at the All-Star games. Why don't you give us a couple names there from the East-West of guys who popped during your time down there?
It's funny, DJ, because like a lot of times we've talked about this, but in Southern California, some of the 5 stars that come out. So Damani Jackson, modern day player, comes out, does his thing. He ran 10.25 when he was in high school, went to USC, then made his way to Alabama. Didn't have the finish to the career that he wanted, but man, there's one thing that stands out. When you're 6 foot or taller and you run a verified time that he ran, you're going to have an opportunity. And then when you watch him play, he's smooth and fluid. He can make all the turns and transitions, all those things that you wanted to see. He stood out. And so he was very impressive. And then there were some other guys, Wesley Williams, a defensive end from Duke, stood out, made some plays. He was all over the backfield. The hard thing is you want to give people credit for practicing, but there's still a thing about when you play in the game, you just don't know. It's different. Practice is practice, games are games. And there's some people that play in games. And a lot of the top end performers didn't elect to play in the game, which was their right. So you can't really put a bow on the evaluation because there's a difference between how you practice and how you play.
No, I think it's a very real point. I want to kind of go along that vein of getting to some Senior Bowl guys because a couple guys that played all the way to the game. I want to start with those 2 guys. Caleb Banks was defensive tackle from Florida, who's 6'6", 330 pounds. He is long, Buck, incredibly long arms. I can pull you his numbers here. Caleb Banks He is 6'0", 6'0", 6'6" even, 335 with 35-inch arms, 10 and 3/4 hand. Like, he's just a massive human being. Only played a couple games this year because of an injury, but you go back to 24, you can see the flashes. Now, get to this week, he was the classic flash DT. We've seen this type of player. Chris Jones would be the ultimate example and someone that hit big in the second round. But a lot of times these guys are usually going in the 20s, 30s in that range, who have the size and flash, but maybe not as consistent. Throughout the week, same thing. Like, he gets high and gets washed and kind of just hangs at the line of scrimmage. Then all of a sudden you see him get his pads down and they can't block him. And he's athletic. He can run. He'll spin off blocks. Like, even in the game, he did that as well. But I think him going wire to wire the whole week and then playing in the game, especially coming off of a year where he was hurt, I think was a good statement for him.
Yeah, good statement. It's funny, DJ, because in watching him, man, I just wrote down violent defensive tackle, heavy hands, quick arm over, nimble movement. When you looked at the 2024 tape, man, it was great. He's injured last year, but the effort shows up. He has a snatch and jerk. And so then when I hear about what he was doing down there, I was like, yeah, like, he is someone that we talk about bottom of the first, top of the second. He's going to be in that conversation. You talk about 25 to 40. He's going to land in there because of the way that he played on tape previously, but also kind of reminding people of that talent at the Senior Bowl. That's kind of the mission and the objective of the All-Star game.
Yeah, and mission accomplished there with him. And I talked to a bunch of people around the league that all the expectation is that even if you see some holes and there's the durability question or this, that, or the other, they all believe he's going to go in the first round. Just the package that he brings to the table. It's pretty enticing. I mentioned Zion Young there from Missouri. He's a little bit tight, Buck, a little bit stiff, but that profile, power rusher. I saw an interview with him, and maybe it was just even an article. I saw the connection, which I liked a lot, which was asking him about players that he models his game after. But he mentioned DeMarcus Lawrence, who's someone who's a little bit tight as well, but very heavy-handed, very powerful, plays really, really hard, and is impactful. And I think that kind of describes how his week was. He was excellent. He was just outside my top 50. He's got a good shot at getting in the top 50 going forward. He looked like a top 50 player during the week.
Yeah, no, it's funny, right? And you talk about the helmet, Missouri. I just think about we're not as caught up on that, but there used to be something about Mizzou Made and how they always produce top players. They were hard and they were ready to go. And when you saw the flashes of him, and I saw some of the flashes, man, he certainly showed up and showed out.
Yeah, and I'll pull up a nugget here from his college coach, because I reached out to Coach Drink and was like, hey, what can you tell me about him? And he said, loves football. He was advised and had planned on not playing in the bowl game, but he wanted to practice to stay sharp. Once they got to the bowl site, after the first practice, he came and told the staff he had to play. He couldn't finish. He couldn't not finish the right way. So he ended up playing that game. So you got somebody who now has played, and I know, look, I don't punish anybody for sitting that stuff out. It's become what it is. It's almost like a spring game environment at some of these bowl games, but I do give you bonus points for playing. So I think Zion Young going all the way through the year, playing in that bowl game, going through the whole week of the Senior Bowl, playing in the Senior Bowl game, I think that's a statement. I think that makes a statement about him.
So we're not supposed to do it, right? Because it's a change in time in terms of in the scouting world, how we view people that participate or don't participate in these games. But it does speak to your competitiveness. And I understand making business decisions. But the story that you just talked about, Zion, and how he got down there and said, look, I can't imagine not finishing the week the right way at a time where we've talked about one of the things that people are doing in the scouting world is, do they love it?
Yeah.
Do they really love the game? Can they exist without it?
Fear factor.
This is
That's
the thing.
line.
This is the thing that people are using. And so when we're separating clusters, the cluster buster, it is going to be a conversation about, hey, man, this guy went, did everything, loved it, couldn't get away from it, and played and performed well. Man, that might be enough to put him over top of somebody that may carry a similar grade.
No doubt. I want to get through a couple more guys here. Some other edge rushers were excellent. It was a really impressive week by that group as a whole. Derek Moore from Michigan did an awesome job all week long. Powerful. Didn't play in the game, but had a really good week. And he's someone who's got 34 and change arms, 6'3", 6'3.5", 254 pounds, but he's got a lot of power. He played really well. I talked about this with Rosenthal. You'll hear it on that 40s and Free Agency podcast. TJ Parker from Clemson had a really good week, was a top 50 guy. I think he's kind of back in that first round conversation with the job that he did. So those are just a few of the edge rushers. Defensive tackle wise, Lee Hunter, who I was a big fan of, had a really good week. I think he's going to be a top 50 pick. He's got a chance to go in the first round, but I think for sure he's a top of 2 type player. I want to get to a couple wideouts, that I'll get your thought on this one. But Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, best receiver going into it, and had the best week. He was 6'4", 218, a highlight film catch in practice, played well in the game, rock solid, top 50 guy all day long. And then 2 other guys here. You had Ted Hurst from Georgia State, played really well. Not only just a vertical guy, showed a little more polish than I would have anticipated. So he was impressive. But this is my favorite nugget from the week. Tyron Montgomery, who is the receiver from John Carroll, right, was a basketball player, and then was bounced around and ends up being at John Carroll's Division III, right? John Carroll's Division III, and he has a phenomenal week. But I was talking to one of our mutual friends, and for those that don't know, when scouts go down there, you get assigned a position. So you just go down the field and you'll just follow that position around for both practices and keep an eye on him. So this guy our buddy had corners. So he's watching a corner in this group, and he's all, I see him there from the first rep. He's all, and I could see him kind of he was counting. He was line counting. So think about it. Now you're a corner, and you're looking at these wideouts. So I'm gonna tell you some of the dudes. So you're looking over there. Okay. So I got Colin Lacey from Louisville. I've got an Ole Miss receiver. Oh, there's Reggie Virgil from Texas Tech, and I got Josh Cameron from Baylor, and he's like, "Ooh, what's that helmet up? John Carroll." Oh, yeah. Hey, you go in front of me, you go behind me. He tried to line it up to go, and then got his butt handed to him, not knowing that, I guess this guy from John Carroll's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's something. It's funny that he was able to pick that up.
Oh, it happens. He said, I can definitely see it.
It happens all the time, and people are doing the matchups, and if you haven't had a chance to watch Senior Bowl practices, everyone stands around and looking at the one-on-ones. Those matchups matter because people are judging people based on the winner and loser of those matchups. And so you're trying to find someone that you can dominate so you look good for the week, right? And to take up a small
tomato can. That was not a tomato can.
And when you come from a bigger school and you say, "Oh man, let me take this little school guy on. Let me step in here and jump in." Yeah, you can mess around and get embarrassed. And it sounds like he had a little humble pie.
Yeah, a little humble pie, no question. I'll give you a couple more guys here. Max Ihanachor, the tackle from Arizona State, was one of my favorites, coming into the process. He had a great week. And then 2 linebackers, Kyle Lewis from Pitt, who was kind of a tweener hybrid player. He's going to be an exceptional cover linebacker. He made a ton of plays in coverage. He's fast. He's just kind of, that there's a place for him on day 2 somewhere. And then Jacob Rodriguez, I thought athletically was a little bit better than I would anticipate out of Texas Tech. Everybody knows the production. And again, he goes out there and forces a fumble and picks off a ball in practice. He's been a playmaker. You don't get, one of the finalists for the Heisman Trophy as a linebacker without making plays. So I think I can look at myself and self-evaluate over the years. There's been some linebackers with this profile that I've maybe discounted because of maybe some athletic limitations there. How is this going to translate? It's almost like a running back who has excellent vision and maybe doesn't have all the other stuff. Like, that's the most important thing. When you got instincts like that, you're going to find a way to play and make some plays.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to have a chance. And it was funny. I was in the airport that day that he came up and made the play, and I was watching it play out, and I couldn't hear you guys talk about it, but I could tell there was some excitement about him making those plays. And if you go back and you look at the production that he had consistently throughout his time, man, he made a ton of plays at Texas Tech. And there is a thing for linebackers that just have those natural instincts. And it's not always pretty, but they find a way to get around the ball. And I just anticipate him being able to do some of the same stuff that he's done forever.
Yeah, no, he's going to be a solid player. We'll see how high he ends up going. My highest corner coming into the process was Colton Hood from Tennessee. I didn't think he totally stood out the way I would have wanted him to there. He had some decent days, but I thought he blended in a little more than you'd like. There's always, you go through this process and there's guys that match what you saw on the tape. There's guys who exceed it. And there's other guys who are like, okay, I need to do a little more on him, because I didn't think he kind of matched what my early evaluation might have thought he would be.
Yeah, no, it's funny because in doing him, because he was the buzz coming on, and Like when you watch the tape, super competitive, feisty, good tackler on the perimeter. So I would have gone down to Mobile with anticipation that, oh, this dude's going to be an absolute dog when it comes to competing in those things. And I saw some of the flashes and some of the things that showed up. But you're right. Like we talk about first rounders, and there are different levels of first round guys. The plus guys, man, it is clear and apparent from day one.
Quinion Mitchell last year, or whatever it was, 2 years ago, like nobody could mess with him. Like he, anybody and everybody, come get it.
Yeah, and they do it, and that's the thing, because in those games, and we had always viewed the Senior Bowl as the best of the best. Like you're trying to see how these guys stack up, and if he's number one on the list, if he's the guy that we're going to talk about maybe being CB1, you want to see him dominate where there are no questions about, hey, who's the best corner in the thing, and didn't quite get that. And so, yeah, that'd be disappointing. And then you have to go back to the tape and make sure, like, oh, did I over-evaluate it? Or maybe he just didn't have it in this week, but I still love what I saw on tape.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at it. He was my highest corner in that game. He was my third highest corner overall. He was my 16th overall player. But if you're a top 20 player in a draft at an all-star game, you got to stand out and dominate. He did not do that. So, we'll have a little homework to do there and watch some more there and see what that looks like. But that's a glimpse there at some of the top players from the Panini Senior Bowl. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, let's look first of all, since we're on the personnel side of the equation here. We get Atlanta hires Ian Cunningham, a good buddy, and excited for him. John Eric Sullivan. Did you work with John Eric Sullivan? Buck?
No, I didn't work with him, but I know him really well. I've known his dad for a long time, and then John Eric has continued to grow and become a really good evaluator. And I knew, and I know what the Dolphins are in for when it comes to how he's going to build it. It's going to be a draft and develop team. They're going to supplement it with free agents, and I'm not surprised that he went and got Jeff Hafley so that they kind of understand and operate in lockstep. I think he's going to be a good job. I think he's going to do a great job in Miami because he's been close for those jobs. He was one of the finalists in Jacksonville a year ago, and it was time. And so I'm excited to see him kind of put his own stamp on the process, and as they go through the team building deal, to see what his team eventually looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I had a chance to just congratulate him, ran into him down there at the Senior Bowl. So happy for John Eric. I didn't get a chance to see Ian. I don't know if he might have been interviewing actually during Senior Bowl week to get that gig in Atlanta. That's an exciting organization. They're in a real pivotal time right now. If Michael Penix can just stay healthy, got a lot of pieces in their place there.
Yeah, they got a lot of pieces. I mean, they played pretty well. They won the last 4 games to close the season. Offensively, we've always talked about what they have on offense with Drake London, and they had Kyle Pitts and some of the other playmakers around. Yeah, then you got Penix. The offensive line had performed pretty well. It's interesting, right? So Matt Ryan has his chance to put his stamp on the organization, goes and gets an experienced coach in Kevin Stefanski. Didn't end well in Cleveland, but when given a quarterback, his quarterback of preference, the offense has worked. So I'm just curious to see what that looks like. Tommy Reese being the offensive coordinator, how they build around Michael Penix. And then for Ian Cunningham, who has seen a quick rebuild process last year in Chicago. Ben Johnson came in. They turned that thing right around with Ryan Poles making a few key acquisitions. Can the Falcons operate like that? Can they hit the ground running right away in Kevin Stefanski's first year with a young quarterback, very similar to Caleb Williams, second, third year, like trying to make it go? What does this look like?
All right, I want to see if you're on the same page as me on this, because I've thought about this a lot with Matt Ryan and his role. You see it around Tony Boselli with the Jags. I know, and there's some people saying, well, and I guess they're not going to get a draft pick with Ian getting that job because they're saying Matt Ryan is the key decision maker, if I read that correctly. So there's been a discussion of like, are these jobs good jobs because you don't have, there's another layer between you and the owner. Buck, I think every team should do this. If I was going to be a general manager, I would want that Matt Ryan, Tony Boselli layer, because guess what that is? That is a buffer with the owner. I'm not having to spend my time, because the old line used to be the most important job of the general manager is to have a good relationship with the owner, because you will be able to overcome poor results if you have a great relationship with your owner, and he'll be more forgiving So you have general managers, some places and some organizations with some owners who've had to take away from the task at hand of constructing and maintaining and building a winning roster with having to placate owner issues and having to, massage different things with him and make sure you're constantly investing in that relationship and keeping him happy and informed. Well, now you have a conduit there to him. You have a translator who the owner already implicitly trusts. He's not in any danger of getting fired. Like Matt Ryan is gold in Atlanta. Tony Baselli is gold in Jacksonville. The owners trust him. So now I'm speaking to a football person instead of to the owner. I'm kind of working through him as a translator who now can calm the owner down and can handle that side of it. And guess what? I get to spend all my time, working on making sure we're getting the contracts done we need to get done. I'm making sure that we're adding to our roster. I'm spending more time with our coaches to make sure that they're taken care of. To me, you're doing football stuff. Like, that's going to take some of the non-football stuff off your plate. I think it's a good thing. I think you should want to have somebody in that role.
Yeah, I think you should. And I'm going to come at it from a former player standpoint, because the common denominator between Matt Ryan and Tony Baselli, they were longtime members of the respective organization. And when you really ask them what the responsibility is, like, yeah, it's making the football decisions, but it's understanding the culture of the program. And because they both have been successful with those programs, they understand what it took to achieve success and sustain success. So to me, is they're able to maintain the vision. And so they can keep the general manager from kind of veering off the road too far. No. Hey, this is what we do with the Falcons. This is what it is. Now, it's a little different because Ian grew up in that greater Atlanta area. So he kind of knows the Falcons and knows what it is. But for Matt Ryan and for Tony, they inherently know what that building is like. They know what the team is like. And they've been on the team.
They know the owner
when it was at its best. So yeah, it's easy for the owner to have the conversation and to go back and forth, be like, hey, here's where we're at. This is where we're trying to go. This is what, to me, it does make it a lot easier. And I think for those people being involved, but not necessarily being hey, I'm picking the players, understanding their own blind spots and allowing the general manager to do what they're trained to do. Yeah, I think it's a win-win. And I believe, because it's a copycat league, there are going to be more teams that kind of operate,
I think so too,
like this. They're going to be more teams.
They can provide direction, like you said, like kind of the bigger picture vision. So that direction, they can be a great sounding board. Like, shoot, I mean, I want Matt Ryan watching quarterbacks with me every year and receivers and letting me know his thoughts on that as his perspective as a great player. Tony watching offense and defensive lineman. I mean, he'd be great to have in those discussions. But not trying to be the decision maker, so to speak, but being a visionary and being a sounding board is very, very valuable. And to me, I just think it's you should want to have that, and having that long-standing, knowledge of the city, the organization, the owner.
Think Detroit, Chris Spielman.
Yes,
Chris Spielman in Detroit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we've seen this model work successfully a few different times. And as it continues to, look, if Atlanta hits this year, you can see more people say, hey, man, who's a longtime person that kind of gets it, who has the savvy to navigate all the rooms, not only from the football room, but the business room, and to do some of the other things that will prevent the GM from having to do it. Yeah, it's a smart thing to be able to do, and it keeps the train on the track.
I mean, let's be honest, too. Like, scouts that grow into be GMs for forever in the personnel community, there's been a negative reputation of the president's role, because it's always been viewed as it's a half of a business person who thinks they're a football guy, who has the power to hire and fire you because he has the ear of the owner, but he doesn't really know football. So, and he's never going to get fired. Like, nobody wants to be the GM. Everyone wants to be the president, because then you can just hire and fire coaches. You're in a protected layer. So I think having that person in that chair, who is a, Hall of Fame level player, or at least one of the greatest players in the history of your franchise, like, I think they would prefer to have that type of a person in the president's role versus maybe a more business oriented person in that role.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there's something to that. And you're right. Like, DJ, there is this thing that longtime scouts can have when the higher ups aren't perceived to be football people. Either they didn't come through the ranks, the personnel ranks, they didn't come off the field. And so you kind of look at them differently. Whereas when you have someone who has kind of shared experiences in terms of being intimately involved with the game, it eliminates some of that friction that can happen between higher ups.
How about a couple coaching hires here as we wind down a little bit? I don't think we had a chance to talk about a couple of these. I don't think we had a chance to talk about Cleveland with Todd Monken, and I don't think we had a chance to talk about the Buffalo situation either. So, what's your take on Joe Brady as well?
So the Joe Brady thing, like both things, I think what we've talked about Joe Brady is the relationship with the quarterback. Now, the hard thing for Joe Brady is going to be able to establish those boundaries between being Josh Allen's former coach and buddy and being the head coach of the entire team. That is a big thing that he has to work through. But I like what I've heard him say. He talked about the CEO of the team while also retaining play calling duties, making sure that he's the head coach of the entire team and not just worrying about the offense. The hires that he makes, like Jim Leonard coming over, being the defensive coordinator, former player there, understands the building in Buffalo, had a lot of success as a coordinator at Wisconsin, was the interim head coach at Wisconsin. That should work. To me, it's just surrounding him with enough people where he can grow into the position while dealing with these supersized expectations that they're going to have for Buffalo. Not an easy job, but one that he can get himself ready for because the quarterback is on board and the coaches that he's hired are prepared for it because Pete Carmichael coming over is also another big get for him.
Yeah, I think it's helpful from a draft free agency standpoint. You're not having to get up to speed on what he's going to want, from a roster standpoint, not just offensively. Look, you practice against that defense, all through training camp, and he's around that team. He knows what they need on defense and where they can be exploited. So I think that helps, from our side of the aisle, on the personnel side for Brandon Beane to know, okay, we have a pretty clear direction of where we need to go and what we need to do here coming up in free agency in the draft.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And they have to get it right. There's a lot of pressure on them, but they can't deviate from the plan in terms of upgrading the roster to make the quarterback not only comfortable, but to make sure that the defensive side of the ball can complement what they have on offense, one of the best offenses in the league. Brandon Beane, comfortable in his role, understands the task at hand. You got a newbie in the quarterback, but I think the support around him, because there's been so much stability in the front office in particular, they can help him kind of accelerate his growth and development as the leader.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, and can they build this thing up around Josh Allen, get him over the hump? I didn't love seeing him in a boot with the foot injury, but long time here before we get to training camp. Hopefully, he's 100% ready to go. Hopefully, it doesn't impact his golf game. I've gone on a little a journey of following Josh Allen's golf content in the offseason. Little Bob Does Sports with him. I've seen him. I watched a full. It was like I felt like I was cheating instead of like paying for a golf lesson. There was a thing, and I think it was with maybe Titleist. Josh Allen did a full hour and a half golf lesson where they're going through his swing and had him connected to all the motion sensors. And so I was like, I'm just going to pretend like I'm Josh Allen, kind of take notes. Oh, okay, yeah, I kind of have that same issue. So I was using him to help my golf swing. So hopefully he's back on the course. Josh Allen doesn't even know he's helping me, trying to help me become a better golfer.
Josh Allen is your golf muse. Okay,
yeah, he is.
We'll work on that.
He takes to he's such an insane athlete. Like you just see, he gets coached, and then hey, just try this, and then he executes it the first time. He's a freak. But the other one there, Todd Monken. What do you think?
Interesting, right? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Like when Todd Monken's name was first thrown out there as a head coach, I didn't think he really had interest in being a head coach. He had been a head coach at Southern Miss, didn't really dug it, decided to go right back being a coordinator, and so didn't know if he had those aspirations. Here's what I potentially would like about it, and whether Shedeur Sanders is a quarterback or not, I think what you ultimately had is someone who had an appreciation for what was already in the quarterback room, and it's just outside looking in. It appears that Cleveland wants to go down this road in 2026 with what they have so they can build up the rest of the team and then maybe make a bigger decision on the quarterback in 2027. The conversation had to be with Todd Monken. Could you work with what we currently have in the room? If you had to go through a season with Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, are you comfortable trying to figure out how to make that work? And it appears that Todd Monken is comfortable in that, just given the little interaction that we saw with him and Shedeur Sanders when they met in the office, having recruited him and offered him at Georgia, talked about drafting him in Baltimore, and now he gets a chance to coach him. It appears that that relationship at least is at a cordial level where you can say, hey, let's try this and let's see what it looks like for a year. And then if we need to go back in the draft pool in 2027, there'll be more options available for us to do it while we have a better team.
To me, I just seeing the fact that they even pumped this out. I talked to this with Rosenthal about this, but the fact that the first thing that they pumped out content wise was him and Shador and them embracing and telling the story about wanting to draft him and all those things. It felt like they got to go get a veteran, to come in there to the room, potentially. They're not shopping in the Malik Willis neighborhood. They're trying to find just some like a backup level veteran that if it just goes to crap, you could have somebody that could start games for you. But this feels 100% to me, at least, like this is a full year audition here for Shador as they try and figure out if he's the guy. If not, they got the picks in 27 and go get one then.
I think you're right on that. And because why else would they do that? Like they know, and look, they're out of position to get a quarterback in the draft. And so then as free agent, do you want to overpay for a free agent that maybe you don't know? I think this is trying to do it. Now, they run the risk of when they made the move, losing their DC. So we'll see what happens with Jim Schwartz, even though he's under contract.
Yeah. You don't want somebody there. Trust me. Like everybody can say, he's under contract. I'm like, there's no way he's back there. Like it would take some major soothing to get him back. I don't see that happening.
You don't want someone who doesn't want to be there. And it coincides with a time where they're saying, oh, maybe Vic Fangio is going to retire in Philly. Like all of those things coming up. It just, look, I understand him being disappointed. I understand him running out the building like he ran out when he thought that he would be in line to be the coach. Yeah, that's a tough decision. And they have to figure out how they're going to make that happen.
I want to get your thoughts on one scouting thing as we're wrapping up here, which I love having these conversations on here. I was talking to a team and we were talking about free agency and the way they kind of were going through their free agency meetings with their coaches. So they have different players and you're stacking players and you can put them all on your overall list. And you could give, some people will assign it. I know a lot of teams have gotten wise to do this. Instead of asking the DB coach to rank these 15 corners in free agency, they'll say, here's this pod of 3, here's this pod of 4, here's this pod of 5. Like within those pods, rank them because you don't want your personnel department's number one guy to be his 15th guy. You just like, these are like the collection of guys we have, and you kind of rank them within that little pod. But they have... the team I was talking to has they call it almost like a passion meeting. So you have all the coaches in there. We're going to go by position and say, we're not saying like, this is what we're going to pay. Like this is the rank of them, but like, who would you be excited to have in our room? It might be the third tier group of linebacker. It might be the number one overall edge rusher. Who could it be? But like, who are you passionate about that you're like, man, this guy, he's about what we're about. I like him. I believe in him. I think we get the most out of him. Like I'm passionate. This guy makes us better. I thought that was an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, I've heard about those kind of meetings. And I do think it's something we always talk about. Who are you convicted on? Who would you stand on the table for? You've talked and brought up like Red Star player. And what you're doing is you're trying to get people to reveal and disclose, hey, who's your Red Star player in this group? Like who are all the ones that you can pick in this cluster and that cluster and that cluster would be the one that you would bet on if you're coaching them that they're going to have a level of success. I like that. And I think for so long when the coaches would get involved in the process is scout read their report, coaches read their report, they see it from different ways. And there's not the perfect, I guess, negotiation or debate or discussion about, hey, where does the player fall? Because no matter what we think about them as scouts, the coaches have to be on board because there's nothing worse than bringing in a player that the coach refuses to play. And not saying that we got to see the game from the same set of eyes, but we got to be close in terms of what we want and what plays well. And the only way to do that is you kind of got to get the coach's opinion and get them on board with the process and how we're going about doing it.
Yeah, a couple of things. So if you're going through that meeting and you might have a personnel, you might have your pro scout, maybe it's your pro director, your linebacker coach, and your defensive coordinator. If you guys, there's 3 or 4 people that all say, man, I'm passionate about this player. Okay, that's the kind of guy we want to invest in. That's the kind of guy we want to bring in. So it's kind of not just saying one person loves him. It's, man, with all the different guys we had to look at these players, there's a few of them that we all really, really believe in. So those guys are the ones that we need to target. And the final thing I was going to hit you on, Buck, is there's a lot of teams with salary cap space because salary cap's gone up, and there's a lot of teams that are in a real, good situation in that regard. And the vibe that I got at the Senior Bowl and talking to people is that the market, there's not enough quality players, and there's so many teams with space that the numbers are going to get big for free agents. And so you're going to end up having to get uncomfortable paying guys, which my perspective on it, and I want to get your take on it, is there should probably be more re-signs this year than we've seen.
Man, you should get, man, we've been doing this.
If I'm going to overpay, I want to know what the heck I'm getting. I want to know how he fits in our scheme and how he fits in our locker room. I'd be a little more comfortable, I think, overpaying my own guys than maybe going outside.
It's funny. We've been doing the show too long because I was saying the same thing. I was like, oh, if this is the case, because what it does, if you overpay for somebody outside the building and you haven't paid some of your own guys, it's going to create discord in the locker room. You're better served to re-sign your own. We always talk about draft, develop, re-sign. Well, this is a great opportunity with a bunch of salary cap space to do that. We drafted them. They developed. They play well. Let's re-sign them and retain them. And the way that you do it, you're going to have to throw big bucks. And it's going to change the marketplace because whenever you get these big contracts for guys who aren't A-level players, but the money says that they're A-level players, well, now it changes everything, not only for the A-levels, but the Bs. Because now the B is going to be like, well, if he's a B+, I'm a B. I need to be paid in that reasonable range. Changes everything. So, yeah, you're better served to pay your own guys, build your team with the guys that you know, and kind of mitigate some of the risks from a character and cultural standpoint, making sure you got the right guys in the building.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Free agency, I believe March 11th is when that gets cranked up, so not too far away here. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here, Buck?
No, look, it's fun. I know we'll get to it, but Clint Kubiak going to the Raiders, Mike LaFleur going to the Arizona Cardinals. We're all done.
That was an easy decision for Kubiak, though, right? I mean, the Raiders, you're going to have a chance to get a quarterback.
Well, I mean, you're going to have a chance, and like we'll dig into Mendoza. I mean, I think after you've seen the work that Kubiak has done with Darnold, you're Tom Brady and John Spatek, like you love the fact, okay, like Mendoza's athletic enough. Remember, we years ago talked about what's the perfect system for any quarterback. And we talked about this Shanahan Kubiak system and how it can turn average players into Pro Bowlers into MVPs. It is a system that has been proven to elevate players. And so why not, with the number 1 overall pick, you got a chance to get the quarterback that you want. Why not take the job if you're Kubiak?
Yeah, and Mike LaFleur's got his hands full here trying to figure out what to do at that position with the Arizona Cardinals. We'll have a lot of time to discuss that as we head towards the spring. All right, that's going to do it for us. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.